Welcome everybody to News 105 in week 4. Special COVID edition. Continuing the grammar overview, we'll probably finish it today. So first, if you would, let's knock out the quiz of engagement, or the engagement quiz. Code is 111. You know the questions. So while you're working on that, I'd like to welcome my 10 a.m. class to this conversation as well. We are recording this. I think we're recording this. And I had a really intense coughing night last night. And my voice is kind of beaten up. So I'm going to do it once and record it, and hopefully that will satisfy. We both classes, both sections ended at about the same time. It may be pinging you. I'm checking to make sure I am recording this because, yep, okay, so I am recording this. Is anyone getting a weird thing on your screen talking about an AI companion? Okay. I don't really have an AI companion. I'm happily married, and yeah, no AI companions for me. However, they do offer this thing where it will record the transcript of your meeting and give you like a transcript or like a summary. And that's cool. So typically when we're in the same room, I can kind of watch the room and see when everybody's done typing. Can't really do that now. So just kind of feeling my way along. How are y'all doing? Anybody need more time? I added a couple minutes of time, I think, to most of the rest of the quizzes because I think people were getting caught up in kind of some of their responses, and maybe, yeah, it took them a while to get through everything. So I added like 2 minutes. I didn't want to give it so much time where people could, read the story as they were doing the quiz. So I hope the 2 minutes will help. Does anybody have anything that they can share? Just go ahead and speak up if you do.
I read about the recent Hold on. What did I say exactly? Oh, it happened in Gaza. It was the recent truce between Gaza and Israel, and thousands of people walked back into northern Gaza.
Okay, that was sometime last week. Good story. Uh, what struck you about it?
I just thought it was really unique that all of the Gaza citizens like combined and marched back into northern Gaza. It was a really cool sight to see because the article had like photos on it and everything. It was really cool to see.
It would be very emotional, I would think. Um, okay, good. How about another?
I read an article about North Dakota's ban on gender affirming care for kids goes on trial sometime this week. I mean, something that struck me about it is like I was reading they kind of had both sides about it, how they just want to do it since they're kids and the mind's not fully developed, but at the same time, how people are thinking they're taking their rights away. So just seeing both sides of it. But then it also showed how many states already have a ban of it, and it was kind of shocking to see that amount already.
Let's have one more.
Wait, can I talk about mine? It's weird.
Yeah, please.
I read about a woman in Alabama who's had a pig organ for 61 days now, and they're altering pigs to make their organs more human-like so that scientifically they can help humans in the future if like organ donors are needed.
So, um, giving us a running start. We ended last week with the active and passive voice sentences that use the subject, uh, verb, object order. I am shamelessly reading off of the slides here. Subject, verb, object order are in the active voice. The passive voice sentence reverses this, so everything's kind of backwards and a little bit more wordy. I have minimized by the way, I have minimized my windows, which means that if you raise your hand or try to get my attention, I probably won't see you. I think just go ahead and start talking if you have questions and just stop me mid-sentence. It's the only way I think I can work it today. So, passive voice, of course, can sound clumsier and awkward like this. Houston, a problem is had by us. So there's this blog that I think is really funny. I have a link to it in Canvas, but it's 100 very famous movie quotes that were turned into the passive voice. The passive voice mangling. Say it better. The truth can't be handled by you. Anybody recognize that? What's the line?
Is it you can't handle the truth?
Can't handle the truth. Exactly. Highly recommend the movie, by the way. It's aged very well. Um, the money is to be shown to me.
Is that
Show me the
the money?
Show me the money. Exactly. I'm not going to try to do a Cuban accent, but a hello will be said to my little friend.
Say
say
hello.
hello to my little friend.
Oh, nice. Okay. Baby is not to be put in a corner by nobody.
Nobody puts baby in the corner.
Oh, yeah. Uh, go ahead. My day is to be made.
Go ahead and make my day.
Exactly. Frankly, my dear, a damn is not given by me.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Right. This is something that people in my generation would probably get more. Highly recommend the movie. It hasn't aged completely well, but I think it's kind of funny. Stryker says, "Surely Sirius can't be by you." Brumac, "Sirius is by me, and surely is not to be called by you." I will fill in that again. Classic movie. Surely you can't be serious. I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. Well, okay then. So, positives. This is one that can get a little messy. I'm not sure it's, um, yeah, it's not something you use every day, but this is part of the overview from the text. So, and a positive is a noun or a noun phrase that renames, identifies, or explains, or in some other way supplements the meaning of another noun or noun phrase. And a positive that is accompanied by modifiers is called a positive phrase. Positives can be either essential or non-essential. Has anybody heard of an appositive before? So those essential or non-essential appositives. Essential appositive defines a noun or noun phrase it accompanies. It is not set off with punctuation, usually, by the way, a comma. It is essential to the meaning of the sentence. A non-essential appositive adds the supplemental information. That is to say, it is not critical to the meaning of the sentence and is set off from the rest of the sentence with punctuation, usually commas or dashes. Examples of essential appositives. The required class, or no comma, organic chemistry 101, no comma, is one of the most difficult in the program. The film Moonlight, no comma, won 3 Academy Awards. Team Captain Ronald Stevens, no comma, called for a meeting of the players. So you get the shtick here. The essential positive is kind of red flagged by the fact that it's not with a comma anywhere if it's correctly written. The non-essential appositives, by comparison, Gone with the Wind, comma, a novel about the Civil War era, comma, is laden with subtle racism. So I have an asterisk next to that. Again, going back to our definition, right, that essential appositives are, notes back here, something that defines a noun or a phrase that accompanies. It is not set off with punctuation. It is essential to the meaning of the sentence. I put an asterisk next to there because I thought a novel about the Civil War era does define Gone with the Wind. It's also a film about the Civil War era. Or perhaps, frankly, you don't give a damn. Um, just kidding. A novel. All right, so seems like it could be an essential positive, but if we also pay attention to the fact that Gone with the Wind and the reference to it being a novel about the Civil War era is not critical to the meaning of the sentence. The meaning of the sentence is that Gone with the Wind isn't a novel about the Civil War era. It is laden with subtle racism. So, which is kind of I also highlighted this because, a lot of this is subjective and it's going to take a slightly nuanced read into the sentence to figure out whether it's a non-essential or an essential, a positive. Another example, my car, M dash, a real lemon, M dash, is in the repair shop again. Okay. The car, that a real lemon does not define the car. In fact, it is not probably a real lemon. So that's a good use of understanding of this being a non-essential positive. The blouse is in the same color as my living room curtains, comma, dark green. Well, okay. Common grammatical errors. Run-on sentences. They typically contain two or more independent clauses with no punctuation separating them. Warning, warning, warning. Students are, if nothing else, famous for run-on sentences. So this is something that if you have been told that you do an occasional run-on sentence, this is something to think about. And you can think about this on your proofreads. If you have a run-on sentence with two or more independent clauses, think about chopping that bugger up into a couple of different sentences. Examples. I love to read books. I would read one. I would read a new one every day if I could. That is, in fact, two sentences. Doesn't even have a comma there. So, yeah, we did not know which restaurant we wanted to eat at. We drove for hours until we found one. We agreed to eat fast food. Okay, well, this is just a person that doesn't like to use periods, or punctuation, but yeah, that's at least several sentences. So, of course, adding punctuation in appropriate places, and periods if you can, or just rewrite the sentences. Good writers carefully edit their stories to eliminate any run-on sentences. And then I'm adding, definitely think of the complex sentences too. Previous examples. And that is me fixing a couple of these sentences. I love to read books, semicolon. I would read a new one every day if I could. Honestly, I just put a comma there. We did not know which restaurant we wanted to eat at. So we drove for hours until we found a fast food place we could all agree on. I would probably break that up into two sentences, actually. Okay, let's talk about Oxford commas. Does anybody have a hard time understanding the concept of Oxford commas? Often there can be, and that's why I was just asking.
Sometimes I do.
Okay, so you might benefit from this. I don't know how the playthrough is going to be on my machine playing this from YouTube onto Zoom, but let's give it a try. Crank up this bugger. Make sure that you get audio that isn't bad.
Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today on the 2-Minute Writer, we're going to talk about the Oxford comma. Now, if you've been in the English community or writing community for a while, you've at least heard of the Oxford comma and how people have very strong feelings about it. I'm very pro Oxford comma, but what this video is about is what it is, why you should use it. So first of all, the Oxford comma is the comma that comes right before the final item in a series. So I want to go get bread, milk, comma, and cheese. I would like to thank Bob, Cindy, Brad, comma, and Lucy. So that's the basic idea of the Oxford comma. The reason that I'm very pro Oxford comma, and I know that a lot of professional editors and other teachers are too, is that using an Oxford comma, that last comma before the final item in a series, is that it can avoid confusion. It can help you avoid confusion in your writing. Consider the following examples. I would like to thank my parents, Mother Teresa, and God. If you have the Oxford comma there, there's no confusion at all. You're thanking those three groups of people and well, the Oxford comma is the comma and cheese. The Oxford comma is the comma that comes right before the final item in a series. So I want to go get bread, milk, comma, and cheese. I would like to thank Bob, Cindy, Brad, comma, and Lucy. So that's the basic idea of the Oxford comma. The reason that I'm very pro Oxford comma, and I know that a lot of professional editors and other teachers are too, is that using an Oxford comma, that last comma before the final item in a series, is that it can avoid confusion. It can help you avoid confusion in your writing. Consider the following examples. I would like to thank my parents, Mother Teresa, and God. If you have the Oxford comma there, there's no confusion at all. You're thanking those three groups of people, and if there isn't the Oxford comma, then suddenly you are some kind of miraculous being, which I guess is pretty cool. Or let me give you another example. I always listen to the Beatles, Bono and Ed Sheeran. If you have the comma there, the Oxford comma, that final comma in the series, again, there's no confusion at all. You listen to those three separate artists and everything is good. However, if the comma is not there, suddenly the Beatles have a very different face than the Liverpool Four that we're used to. So make sure to add in the Oxford comma anytime that you are writing. It doesn't matter if it's fiction, nonfiction, formal, informal, whatever. You need it for clarity. God bless the Oxford comma. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.
Okay, so so again about the Oxford, excuse me, about the Oxford comma. AP Style doesn't use it. I kind of agree with her. I think the Oxford comma makes sense, although I'm not as passionate about it as she is, and I'm not as against the Oxford comma as my colleague Kate Elliott is. I'm kind of in the it is what it is camp, and we just don't use it for AP style. So use of an Oxford comma will ding you probably like a point or something. Apologies for coughing at you. So, comma splices then. Sometimes a writer will attempt to fix a run-on sentence by inserting a comma between the two independent clauses. This can create another type of comma mistake called the comma splice. That happens when you use a comma to link two independent clauses when they should be linked by a colon, semicolon, conjunction, or a damn period. Just break the thing into two sentences, which is usually what I do when I see a comma splice. Example, the purchase of a car is hard. There are many good ones available. To me, that's two sentences. So, agreement errors. So everything has to agree. Why can't we all agree? Subjects and verbs, simple sentences. If the subject of a sentence is singular, then use a singular verb. If the subject is plural, then use a plural verb. You probably already do this. Not so simple sentences when a prepositional phrase separates subjects and verbs, or when the subject is a collective noun. Agreement can be a little trickier. Examples. A team of researchers have gathered the information. The sentence seems simple enough. Observe, though, team, a singular noun, is the subject. The prepositional phrase of researchers describes the team. That is plural. But the verb should agree with the singular noun, not the plural researchers. If we were to make that incorrect, what might the noun be? I'm sorry. If we were to make that correct, a team of researchers has gathered the information. Not so simple sentences. when prepositional phrases and subjects become subjects and verbs, when the subject is a collective noun, agreement also becomes trickier. Economics are a required course. Some nouns, such as economics, politics, physics, may appear plural because they have an S stuck to the end of it, but they are considered singular. For nouns and pronouns, not only must pronouns agree with verbs, but they also must have the same number. That is to say, either singular or plural. And gender, male, female, or neutral, as their antecedents. A single feminine noun requires a singular feminine pronoun. A plural neuter noun requires a plural neuter pronoun. Collective nouns cause the most problems with noun and pronoun agreement. General Motors is expanding their product line. The faculty gave their vote to the director. General Motors is expanding its product line. The faculty gave its vote to the director is correct. That versus which. This is a famous mistake that I see, especially when I'm grading student papers. This is one area where my obsessive use of spell check helped me learn the difference between that and which, at least when it comes to punctuation. That and which are relative pronouns, which introduce clauses referring to ideas, inanimate objects, or animals without names. Jason used the lawnmower that is in the garage. Jason used the lawnmower which is in the garage. So, differences between those two sentences. Well, which always follows a comma, although I guess conceivably it could follow a dash. But almost always follows a comma. That doesn't get a comma anywhere around it. If the sentence is read without the subordinate clause and the meaning does not change, which should introduce the clause. Otherwise, use that. So, what are they saying that, Jason used the lawnmower that is in the garage. All right, so maybe this is a residence or a house or a farm that is covered with hundreds of lawnmowers, and we weren't sure which one Jason was going to use. Well, he's using the one that's in the garage. Jason used the lawnmower which is in the garage. That lawnmower is in the garage, so it gets a which. Who or whom? This is also a tricky one. Either who or whom may appear as the first word in a question, depending on its grammatical relationship to the rest of the sentence. Who gave you the Kindle? Whom do you prefer as your district's legislator? In the first example, who is the subject of the clause, the initiator of the action, gave. In the second, whom is the direct object of the word prefer. And we get to hear from her again. I found this one to be especially helpful.
Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm a teacher and author, and this is English Nerd. So I've got gotten some requests to do a new video about the difference between the word who and the word whom with some clearer examples. So that's what I'm going to do today. Just a note before I dive into the simple distinction between these words. At this point, yes, it's important to know the distinction for some formal writing. However, the distinction is eroding over time. However, if you need to give a formal presentation, write a formal paper, write an academic thesis, things like that, then differentiating between these two for the sake of clarity, that's really what it's here for. So there is a simple difference between the word who and the word whom. We're going to start with who, since it's the one that's used the most. Who is nominative. So if you haven't, studied Latin cases or things like that, you might be asking, okay, what does that even mean? Nominative just means that the word is the kind of word that's used as the subject of a sentence or clause rather than the object or something else. So a nominative word can be used as the subject. For example, I can't tell who left. So if you know your grammar, then you know that I is the subject of the whole sentence, but we have a subordinate clause there. A clause has a subject and a verb and does something in the sentence with that subject and verb that go together. So yes, I is the subject of this sentence, but who is the subject of the subordinate clause? You can see here, who is the subject of the clause and left is the verb that goes with that. So since it does have a verb that is immediately attached to that subject, you need to use who. Next is the word whom. Whom is not in the nominative case, it is in the objective case. That means that it's used as the object of the sentence. The three main objects in a sentence are going to be the direct object, the indirect object, and the object of the preposition. I'm going to give you some examples for each one of those. So a direct object is basically the thing, the person that receives the action. However, that can be kind of a confusing description. So if you find the subject, you find the verb that goes with it. If you still need to ask what, then the answer to that question, if you ask it after the verb, is going to be your direct object. So for example, you left whom. Whom is our object, you is the subject, left is our verb, you left, and we still need to ask what or who. The answer is whom, our direct object. Indirect object receives that action in a different way. That's why I don't love these descriptions that you sometimes get in English class. So you have a sentence that has a subject, an action verb, and a direct object, right? But if you still need to ask to whom or for whom, to what or for what after that direct object, then that is the indirect object. So for example, you gave whom directions to the party. So I'm going to break it down for you. You is the subject, gave is the action verb. You gave what or who directions to what, to whom? Whom is your answer there. So it's going to be indirect, an indirect object. A common misconception is that the only way you can find indirect objects is if there's actually that phrase in the sentence, to whom or for whom. That would actually be a prepositional phrase, and so it would not be an indirect object. Instead, indirect objects come before direct objects in the sentence, like this one, you gave whom directions to the party. I know I'm getting into the weeds a little bit here, but I want to make sure I'm giving you the examples along with the explanations that go with them. So if you have questions, let me know. And then finally, object of the preposition. I already basically gave you an example of how that one works, but prepositional phrase is just a preposition above, about, aboard, for, in, etc. And then the object of the preposition. Basically, all of green eggs and ham is a series of prepositional phrases. So if the object, the noun that goes in that phrase, is going to be either who or whom, then you need whom, the one in the objective case, the object one. So these directions are for whom. This is the most common way that we actually use this in speech, the word whom, that is. For whom, to whom am I speaking, that kind of thing. So whom is going to be the object of the preposition. So there you go, the difference between who and whom. I know I got into some specifics. I hope I didn't muddy the waters there. Just to recap, who is used as the subject, whom is used as the object. I hope these examples were helpful for you. If you have any particular situations you're not quite sure how to handle, put those down below and I will do my best to help you out.
All right.
Hello, welcome.
Okay. So yeah, there's a lot to who or whom, and she's absolutely correct. Um, those differences are becoming less important as people move on. I doubt that many, I won't say any, because there's some sticklers out there, but I doubt that many editors will ding you over your use of who versus whom, but I still get lots of questions about it. So one way to avoid the confusion, like she said, excuse me, is to replace them with a personal pronoun. Isolate the who or whom of the sentence. If he or she sounds right, you can use who. If him or her would be more natural, think about using whom. Do this in the following sentence, and it is easy to see that whom is incorrect. The candidates argued about whom was responsible for the tax increase. Misplaced modifiers. Modifiers are words that limit or restrict some other word or phrase. Modifiers should appear as close as possible to the word or phrase they modify. With a misplaced modifier, things can get weird. For instance, she retold the ordeal of being held hostage with tears running down her face. Why might that be weird? And this will be the last question of the class. Well, I'll tell you. She's retelling the story of an ordeal of what it was like to be held hostage with tears running down her face, as opposed to being held hostage without tears running down her face. I'm sure hostages will both cry and not cry at different times. So better would be with tears running down her cheeks, she retold the ordeal of being held hostage. Dangling modifiers. Well, I'm going to dangle you on a cliffhanger for that until Wednesday. So we're going to stop right there. And thank you for listening and putting up with my coughing. And I will see you Wednesday, I hope. Any questions before I go? Well, okay then. I'll give you a wave. See you later.